Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Trial of Strength, War on the Eastern Front 1941 to 1945. This is a game designed by Dave O'Connor, and it was originally published in 1985 through Panther Games. It is getting a second edition reprint through Lock and Load Publishing with some new developments done and new components and a big 3-inch box, so that will house all of the counters that come with this game, and there are a ton of counters. But let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game is all about. Trial of Strength 2nd Edition is a simulation of the Eastern Front campaign fought between Germany, along with her Axis allies, and the Soviet Union during World War II. The game is designed around the conventional land warfare integrated movement and combat system, Climax. The game is played in a series of turns. Each turn starts with some housekeeping, followed by the Axis player turn, and then the Soviet player turn. Within each player turn, the phasing player moves its forces one stack at a time. A stack expends its operational allowance to move and fight. It can do so in any order subject to its allowance. It can drop units off, join with other stacks, fan out, and conduct combined attacks with other stacks. Whenever the phasing player announces an attack, the non-phasing player can try and react its forces. In doing so, they incur a movement penalty that applies to their next operations phase. And you can see here the map, the new map that's coming with the game, and the new components, as well as the new counters. And it has a new list here on the side: vassal compatibility. Complexity is listed as a 5, solitaire suitability is a 6. I think those are going to be adjusted. 1 to 2 hour playing time, 1 to 2 players, ages 14 up. These are also going to be adjusted because a game like this is definitely going to take a little bit more than 1 to 2 hours to play. But game includes over 800 counters, 154 by 86 3-piece map, 1 core manual, 1 scenario and module book, 4 11 by 17 player aids, and 6 17 by 22 OOB sheets. So that'll give you all your orders of battle for both sides. But that is a look at what you get on the back of the box. Now we're going to take a look inside the box, but just want to let you know this is a prototype. This is not obviously the final version. It has not been printed yet, but you're going to see some things that are going to look a little different in the final version. But this gives you an idea of what to expect in the game as far as components that you're going to be getting. We have our rule book. This is the scenario booklet, and then we have our player aid sheets, and then our maps. Now the maps are printed differently than they will in the final. These are all separate maps that I'm going to have to lay out for you, a bunch of them, to give you an idea. And then these are laser cut counters. So let me set up the map and then we'll take a look at the game. All right, so this is going to be a little bit of a different look. Now keep in mind, this is a prototype map. This is not what you're going to see in the final product. This is laid out with about 15 sheets all kind of overlapping. That's why it looks a little off center on several parts, because I'm just laying map sheets on top of map sheets here. So the mistakes there are mine, not the mistakes of the map. But I wanted to give you guys an overview of the map itself. It's really beautiful. The artwork on it is gorgeous. Everything stands out. I'm going to see if I can give you guys a zoomed in look at a couple sections of the map here. But I wanted to give you an overview to see how big this map is going to be. Okay, so I promised you a close in look, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a pan view here. This is the Soviet Union, where it starts on the east edge of the map, and it goes from Grozny all the way across to the west side here to Greece and Albania, up to Yugoslavia and Austria, and then further north into Germany, and then you have the Scandinavian countries up top as well. But that gives you a little bit better of a close look. And here we are zooming into Moscow and Leningrad above that. Again, I apologize for the overlap on the maps. This is my mistake on these. I've kind of jostled them around a little bit on this table as I've tried to give you guys a look. I wanted you to see the graphics that are on this map. As you got the Transylvanian Alps and the Carpathian Mountains here, and sorry for the glare. And then the Scandinavian countries, you have Helsinki, Stockholm, Norway up to the far left. On the east, these are the forests outside of Moscow. All right, so let's take a look at the counters that you get with Trial of Strength 2nd Edition. There are 10 counter sheets, and these, in this one, this is a prototype version, so these are laser cut. The final version will be die cut, but this is the graphics, the art that will be on these counters, so you get an idea what to expect. We've got some headquarters and some infantry units for the Soviets, and on the back we've got some other units as well, the second step for the Soviets, and then some other nationalities on the back. We've got some more Soviet and German units, And you can tell, aside from the color, you can also tell by the badge here, you got the German cross and you've got the Soviet star. So at a glance, you can tell obviously by the color, but if you're not sure, you can just look at the badge itself. We've got some more German units and some Soviets down at the back, and we've got, I'll just flip it over so you can take a look at that second side. And then here we've got some more Soviets and Guard units as well. I really like this red. I think this tone of red really was going to stand out real well on a map, as will all these colors. I mean, these colors are nice and bright, and along with that map that you've already seen, I think these are really going to pop on the table and just make a great presentation. We've got some more Guard units. We've got Germans and SS units here. On the back, some more. And here we've got some other nationalities. We've got Finnish, Swedish, Greek, Italians, some British, and we've got air and naval units as well. And those are the back of those counters. And some more units here, air and naval units, as well as ground. We've got some fortresses, supply depots, naval units, some admin counters up here. And on the back, we've got those. And then we've got some more fortresses and then these brightly colored combat zone counters. And these counters will sit in the stack, and the number that's facing out will be the OP expenditure. So that way you know exactly how many operations points were used in that combat up to that point. And you can just turn it just like a block to tell what number is on each side. So that way it's easier to read. And then on the back, you've got the other numbers here as well. So you've got 1 through 5 on one side and then 6 through 9 on the other. And being nice and brightly colored, it's going to easily pop on the map so they don't get lost. Like with just a die cut counter with just a number on it, I think would be very easy to get lost, especially you've seen the size of that map. It would be real easy to get lost on that map. And then we've got some more admin counters here, but that is a look at the counters that you're going to get with Trial of Strength 2nd edition. All right, so let's take a look at the player aids. There are several of them to look at here. This is the Axis Center chart, multiples chart, reinforcement withdrawal schedules that are all laid out for you here. Easy to read, nice big writing. Definitely us older gamers appreciate that because it makes it easier on the eyes to read those. Same for the Soviets, is the Soviet Center, multiples, withdrawal, and reinforcement schedules. We have our Axis Forces headquarters display where you're going to lay out all your counters, and the same for the Soviet forces as well. Terrain effects chart. Everything is real large, so easy again to read. Gives you an example of the terrain, and then the movement point cost and the combat modifiers for motorized and non-motorized, as well as the conditions, whether it's like, for example, the lake, if it's snow freeze, there are different movement costs and combat effects compared to when it's not. Over here we've got sea hex sides, lake hex sides, blocked hex sides, and then town cities. And then down here is some other features like oil fields, pipelines, Arctic Circle, ice line, provincial borders, national borders, and then previous borders. So those are some of the examples on the terrain effects chart. And then we have the combat value modification chart, the combat ratio chart, and the ratio modifiers chart, and then the modifiers themselves up at the top right. Everything's color coded to make doing the math a little quicker and easier. Not that the math is hard, but it makes it a little faster. And when you're playing a game of this scope, if you can speed things up, that makes it that much better. So that's the intent behind that, is to make it a little easier for everyone to play the game a little quicker. But that is a look at the player aids that come with the game. Now we'll take a look at the rule book that comes with Trial of Strength 2nd edition. Okay, this one says 107 pages, but don't worry about that. The rules themselves go up to page 86. And there's a reason why there's a 20-page differential between the original rules and these 2nd edition rules. Now, some things have been reworked by the developer, but at the same time, the rules, the text is bigger. So, and there's a lot of examples of play. In the original, it was primarily text. There are, as you're going to see going through here, a lot of graphics in this book as well as the larger text. But here's the unit symbols and their breakdowns, and we've got some more of the unit country colors. And then we get into combat values, how to read the counters. Got some examples over here for placing units in the ops complete. Some more examples of the breakdowns for each of the units. more of the counters and their explanations. And then we get into the sequence of play on page 18. So the actual gameplay portion of the game doesn't come into the rulebook until page 18. And then it explains the initial phase, Axis player turn, all the steps that are involved in that. And then over there it says the Soviet player turn. The Soviet player turn is exactly the same as the Axis player turn. Then you have operations, operation allowance, prepare for attack. As you can see, graphics pretty much on almost every page. Force marching, rail movement, sea movement, general OP expenditure. And then we have multiple illustrated examples. And you know how I always talk about I love illustrated examples? Well, this makes it digesting the rules that much easier when you have illustrated examples of play. We get over to ground movement and OP expenditure, stacks and expenditure, combat OP expenditure, combined operations, and then we have more examples, multiple examples I should say, of illustrated examples. More illustrated examples for split rendezvous, reaction assault, reaction task, reaction ability, reaction movement, with an example there, and then more examples here. Combat zones and how those work. Those are those multicolored counters that I was showing you guys before. Then you have stacking and fog of war, which I did mention that you're only going to be able to look at the top counter, because obviously you can't hide that unless you have something you can cover it with, but you won't be able to look at other units in the stack. So that gives you some fog of war. Air unit stacking, disruption, ground combat, and then how to calculate your odds, combat modifiers, and examples here on attacking from different angles and also from different terrain features. And you have casualties, retreats, air support, your advanced after combat's mentioned here. Then you get air support, air power, air bases, and rebasing, weather, frozen terrain, Arctic climate, Axis first winter effects, replenishment, and this goes into all of your reinforcements, withdrawals, disbanding units, converting them. Supply starts here with your supply sources, overland supply range, the rail nets, line of supply and communication, supply phase, out of supply penalties, supply extenders, air, sea, and motorized, and then emergency relief with more illustrated examples. Then you get into logistics for converting units, rebasing naval units, supply points, placing headquarters on the main effort, and fort construction, how that works with some illustrated examples, and then the different nations that are in the game. I have the operation restriction here, and then liberation and realignment of minor nations. The following Axis-occupied minor nations may be liberated by the Soviets: Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Yugoslavia. Albania, Denmark, Greece, and Norway are also occupied, Axis-occupied minor nations, but they're out of play. And then down here, realignment of Axis-allied minor nations. The Axis-allied minor nations include Finland, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and Turkey, if activated. And then over here we get into displacement, partisans, Western allies, the political aspect here for Polish uprising, Soviet support, Turkish entry, again, where it said if the Turks are activated. German airborne units, German security corps, Soviet maritime army, Allied progress, air transportation, airborne assaults, sea transport, examples here, illustrated examples of tactical sea transport, amphibious assaults, rail transportation, inland naval transportation, and some illustrated examples of that. Now we get into some of the advanced rules, the advanced air power, escorts, interceptions, interdictions with illustrated examples, and then the naval power and the Soviet Black Sea Fleet, rail construction, and then victory, and then we start here on detailed examples of play on page 87. But the rules themselves go to page 87. See, the text is fairly large, so that's the main reason, along with a ton of graphics in the rules. So it's still a big rule book, don't get me wrong, but it's not as, my point is I don't want people to look at it and go, wow, 107 pages. Well, out of 107, it actually stops at 86 for the rules. The rest are examples of play and other accompanying text. The page count is high because the text is large and tons of graphics. So you're getting a lot of game in this manual. Here's your detailed examples of play with all the text and with the illustrated examples as well. If you're familiar with Lock and Load Tactical and the way they walked it through with the narrative, it's similar here. And then we get into the designer's notes from the first edition and Dave O'Connor's updated notes from the second edition here. And then the developer's notes discussing armor, air power, supply, and the rail repair. And then we get to the bibliography for the first edition and for the second edition for the Orders of Battle. And that pretty much is it. We get into the glossary, unit reference, and then there's some blank pages back here, and then we get to the credits, and that is the end of the rule book. So that'll give you an example of what to expect from the rule book here in Trial of Strength second edition. All right, so let's take a look at these scenarios that you get with the game. This is just a simple paper handout, different than what it's going to be in the file. First one is Poland 39. As the lights go out, you have your German forces here and your Polish forces here. They have some special rules for this scenario, victory conditions, and the immediate Allied response variant, which you can add in if you want to play something a little different. Then you jump into the Balkans, 1941, securing the southern flank. And there's your Axis forces and your Allied forces, special rules, extra Commonwealth support variant, so there's some variation in each of the scenarios. If you want to play it once or twice and you want to spice things up a little bit, you can add in the variants. In 1942, Axis Southern Offensive, Operation Braunschweig. The 1941 campaign scenario, don't panic, the boss knows all about it. It says here on Sunday, 22nd June 1941, Hitler launched his forces on Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. Subtitled, Don't Panic, the Boss Knows All About It, this scenario is initially a nerve-wracking, hard-hat time for the Soviets and a field day for the Axis. However, skillful and judicious play by the Soviets can wrest from the Axis what appears to be an inevitable victory. And then you have the 1942 campaign scenario, Road to Decision, Road to Disaster. Campaign scenario, 1943, High Noon in the East. And then 1944 campaign scenario, Better Dead Than Red. And then we get into the Orders of Battle here at the back. It breaks down your OOB for each of the scenarios. And that is the end of the scenario book. That's a look inside everything that comes inside of Trial of Strength, War on the Eastern Front, 1941 to 1945. This is the second edition that is being published by Lock and Load Publishing, and it will be coming to Kickstarter very soon. I don't have an exact date, but I know that Space Infantry Resurgence is going to be run first on Kickstarter, and this is going to follow afterwards. But the important thing I want to do is get this out there for you guys to get a look at the graphics that you're going to get on the counters, as well as the charts, the manual, and the map itself, even though these are all prototype components. So things are going to look better with the proper die cut counters and the proper map and everything. Everything published is going to look far superior to this, but I hope this helps you guys out with any type of questions you've had with the game and gives you a look at it and let you know that yes, it is done. It is coming. So I know a lot of people have been asking, hey, what's going on with this game? It's been in production. It's been being worked on. It is nearing completion now, and we'll be ready to launch on Kickstarter. Like Lock and Load has an attitude of wanting to have a finished product ready to go to Kickstarter, so that way it can go right to the printers afterwards and be in your hands that much faster. So I like when you can get a game out on the table faster, that you can back on Kickstarter rather than having to wait a year, 18 months or longer. But I hope this helps you guys out and answer some questions you may have had. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.